Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this episode of the Apart Artist Collective podcast. I'm Jennifer Apple. I'm with somebody who I've never met in person. This is a theme on this podcast that I'm just bringing in people who I love, who I don't know in real life. So, y'all, I'm with the one and only Maggie Bera. Hi.
Jennifer, the fact that you just said we never met in person,
Yeah.
it has not crossed my mind yet that has not happened, because it feels like I know you and I've like grown up with you. Does that make sense?
I know.
Does that ring a
Because,
bell?
well,
Yeah.
this is the thing. And I'm also having this really weird moment about the fact that you're on this podcast versus me having been on your podcast, because that's I think how it all started. Like we didn't know each other before I was on your Actor Aesthetic podcast, which is, well, I'm sure we're going to get into that, but that was the first moment, I think. And yeah, that was midst early pandemic.
Yeah, I think I was in, I feel like I was like down the Jersey Shore or something when we recorded. I remember I was not even home and I had to bring my microphone, and I was like, this is a fun time. Like,
I didn't have a microphone. I was deep in LA and just sitting there, sitting on a computer being like, do I need headphones? Like, what do I do on a podcast? And like, here I now sit in front of a like.
That's usually how it goes. Yeah.
So weird. What is time? I don't know. And we've been working together remotely because I'm on your Actor Aesthetic coaching team, which again we'll talk about, but we've been working since then and developed a friendship since then, and I'm obviously a huge fan of all the things that you do, hence why you're here. But like so weird. It's honestly like pre-pandemic world. I feel I couldn't even fathom the fact that I would have that type of relationship with somebody without having met them in real life.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, what a strange thing. Anyway, hi. I didn't even allow anybody to know who you are. I'm just assuming that
that's okay. Don't worry about that.
But they probably
Don't worry
do.
about me.
No, I mean, bye. See ya. So for all of those who are listening, tell the listener who you are today.
Oh, I love that. Hi. So, my friends, my name is Maggie Bera, and I am an actress. I am an entrepreneur. I'm all of the things. And I'm currently based right outside New York City in Hoboken. Just moved out here in Jersey, and we're very excited.
Y'all, if you tune into the video on YouTube, Maggie has an incredible exposed, like white cool brick. We live for an exposed brick. Yeah.
We live for an exposed brick, but I've been loving it. And as you just mentioned, I also have a blog and a podcast online learning community called Actor Aesthetic. And that has been with me since 2017, and it's grown into something I could have never imagined. So I'm very thankful. But yeah, we're kicking it out here on the East Coast.
What occupies your days in the moment? Because I know you've made like not a career pivot, but like an additional addition to your artistic life.
Yeah. So 2019, I started doing some work before I got into the job that I'm in now, which I'll discuss. I started doing some work as a writer. I was starting to do some like copywriting work and things like that. And then I eventually landed a job with the Broadway Collective, which is an educational theatrical company based in New York City. And I started in their marketing department, and now I'm their marketing manager. So this is like parallel to what I do as a performer, because it's all within the realm of musical theater. I just happen to be working my brain in a very different way than as I do as a performer. So I'm doing that, but also trying to find a balance between that and Actor Aesthetic, and also auditions starting to come up and shows and things like that starting to pop back up. So it has been a wild ride the past few years, but definitely wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah. You just, even now, you mentioned things that I would love to talk about.
Yeah.
First is this, and it can be in any order that you so desire. One is the way in which the marriage of this marketing endeavor, how that has informed your own work, but also what you feel like you've brought from what you do into that. So the symbiotic relationship of that is A. B, the balance part of these things, right? So often, especially in our EAC community, we've had multiple panels about balancing your artistic life. And I'm curious to hear about, for you, what that balance is and how that works. And then I guess my third part, or like third umbrella, is just the way in which you as an entrepreneur and with somebody who wears all these hats, how you compartmentalize or decide when to really drive forward with the different things that you want.
Yeah.
Those are like my 3 major things that I like just from what you just said.
Please, dear God, I hope you can remember them, because I will. I like every single one of them resonated with me, but I think the one that really resonated with me the most in this moment is the balance. And something that I found to be incredibly inspiring to me as a performer since I was young was the fact that as performers, it does not matter how good of a singer or actor or dancer you are. What matters is, yes, your skills and your talent, but also just being in the right place at the right time, and also putting yourself out there for opportunities. So there's a lot of stuff in our industry that, of course, is very subjective, as you know. And because of that, a lot of our career is out of our control. There is a good handful of things that we can control, but a lot of it is out of our control. And it's not in any way similar to a corporate world where you can basically work up a ladder. It's not like that. So I really encourage performers, artists, whatever you are, when you are pursuing a creative passion, to also have something that does keep you financially grounded. Because listen, it's so telling when you don't have that. It's so telling when you walk into an audition room and you're pleading for a job,
right,
rather than I'm walking into an audition room, I feel whole, I feel complete, I feel financially grounded and financially stable. I also feel mentally stable because I have that, and emotionally grounded. Here I am. Here's what I do. Hope you like it. There's such a difference in that. I also, in between my time in college, when I wasn't performing, I was also pretty consistently working with Michael Cassera in New York, casting director in New York. And I was able to sit behind the table a lot. And I saw this like firsthand. Like, you could really tell the people who just walked into the work, said, "This is who I am, bye." And then there were folks who walked in and you could just tell they were just desperate for that job. And you'll never know why, but one of the big factors is needing the job, needing the money, whatever it is, needing that opportunity. So one of the things we can control really is the financial stability. And so pursuing something else outside of our career, maybe even within the industry, but maybe not perhaps as an artist or performer, is really important for your well-being. And gosh, if you're lucky to be working in a Broadway show consistently for 10 years straight, awesome. But I don't really know that many people who do that. So it is important. It's so important. And I've always had that drive in me since I got out of school. So that is why I still have actor aesthetic. That's why I still am pursuing careers outside of this in marketing and social media and anything that I can do that I feel I'm passionate about outside of theater. So that is so important to me. And I really encourage actors and artists and whatever to find that for themselves.
How did you find that for you? Like, how did you find that this was the niche that you wanted to go down?
You know, I have always, it started with writing. I always loved to write. In high school, I didn't want to take choir because I wanted to take writing classes. And in college, my senior year of college, even though I had like most of my credits complete, I was like, okay, what can I do? You know, what is like a career or pathway that I can also pursue in addition to theater? And I was like, well, something that I could do kind of remotely is probably writing. So let me just take some like media and digital media, history of mass media classes, which in turn was the reason why I created Actor Aesthetic, was because of one of those classes. That's why, because I was just curious about things outside of theater. And, you know, even if I didn't go to theater, even if I didn't go to college for theater, I was, you know, wanting to go for history or political science or writing or something like that. So I've always had interest outside of performing, but it wasn't really, it sort of like morphed into something else when I did pursue Actor Aesthetic and what that could be. And the job that I have now with the Broadway Collective, 75% of the reason that I have it is because of Actor Aesthetic. It's because I had like basically an online portfolio of my work already available to showcase what I do.
What made you start actor aesthetic?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you took that class in college, which I'm now curious, like what they told you to be like, this is the thing. And you're like, yes, we learned all this and we created how incredible a class. Who is this teacher? Can they do all the things? but like also, what made you choose a name, but also the entire plight of it, right? Because you've built this entire infrastructure, which obviously you can go into, but you know, with the podcast, with the blog, with the coaching, which again, like so grateful to be on this.
Yeah.
Come work with us, y'all. Come coach with us. Anyway, but with all of those things, like what made you realize that this was the niche that you needed to be able, that you could fill, and also just simply the creation of it as an inception thing?
Yeah. So I had to take that class. I wanted to take that class, which was a digital and online media class. And within that class, you had to create a blog. At the time, it was like 2016, I think. And Trump had just been elected. And I, as you know, like I had just mentioned, I was really interested in politics, and I had always had a passion for that. But I at the time was very scared of writing about politics. It was a very scary, unknown place for a lot of people, especially for actors. And I didn't really feel as though I had my voice there, and I wasn't confident enough, really. So I thought I at first was like, oh, this is going to be, a political blog. Then I was like, what if though I could create something that I don't really feel exists yet? At the time, the real place that I could really find anything remotely similar to what Actor Aesthetic is now was like backstage, some of the articles on Playbill, but to me, they were more so news related. And I started when I finally was like, you know what, I want to write about being a performer. And I feel like this doesn't exist quite yet. I don't really see anything online. I want to see like, what is it like not only to be like an actor in movies, but like what is the life of a theatrical performer? Like, what do they do? Like, what do they do in between jobs? How do they make money? How do they audition? What are these rules and regulations that happen in New York City and LA and Chicago? Like, what is this? And after I decided on a very general idea of actor aesthetic, I decided to pick a name. And at that time, it's so silly. But like at the time, everyone and their mother just was constantly saying the word aesthetic. Like, oh my God, what a pretty like aesthetic. And I'd be like, what the hell does that word mean?
Unreal.
I know. And of course, I love alliteration. So I was like, well, of course it's got to be actor aesthetic. And to this day, my dad like still makes fun of me because he's like, I can't even spell that word. Like he still calls it actor anesthesia.
Dad, no.
He's got to keep me grounded.
Yeah,
okay?
he's like, listen, we wish you went in a different direction, and this is my constant reminder. Where was that med degree? Like, where is that going?
You know what? He's got to keep me humble, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that is
we need that.
Yeah, but I like chose that name, and I said, you know what? I think this is something. I don't know what it is yet. The way that I found my footing, though, was I created an Instagram for it. Again, another part of the grade was like to create like some sort of social media platform, whatever it was, Twitter, Instagram. And I didn't really know much about Twitter. So I was like, let me just make an Instagram. So I made an Instagram and I started just sharing about my life. I didn't really know what I was writing about. A lot of it was still kind of news related because that's all I knew. And then I got some like DMs of people asking me questions. And even if I didn't have an answer, now these questions were about like auditioning or about like summer stock or like very niche down things when it comes to being an actor in musical theater. And I was like, even if I didn't know the answer, I would do the research. And then I thought, okay, well, I have to write a blog post for this week's test or class or whatever. So let me just put all this together in one post. And I just kept doing that. And what I ended up doing was, it was just as if I was just answering someone's question in a blog post all the time. Or if I learned something in class and I wanted to dive deeper into that subject, I wrote a blog post about it. And a lot of it was like how-tos or, very, very basic, like instructional things that I either learned in school or I wish I learned in school. And then when I got to the real world outside of school, I realized, holy crap, there's so much information that I didn't know existed, or I didn't know like what the hell an EPA was. I was like, what is that? And why didn't I learn about this in school? And the issue is that when you go to a program, or you go to a college program, whatever. Now, I loved my program, but even if you went to a program, even in New York City, what happens is your teachers, unless they are currently in the industry 24/7, which is impossible because they're professors, they can't really keep you up to date like you would if you were just doing this full time. So a lot of it I just learned on my own, and I just started documenting that and hoping that at some point it would help someone somewhere. And I found that it did. So I just kept going.
It's wild because that's literally like, I never can say this word, tangential. She did it.
Yeah.
She did it.
Whoa.
I also have a degree in writing. Thank you so much. Creative writing. But tangentially, that's literally how this community happened too, where it was less even like the niche down musical theater situation, but more a matter of just like the life stuff no one's teaching in university spaces and programs just generally, that happened specifically as I was coaching in the pandemic, which was just like no one knew how to be a human being, and like, and no one really does. I don't claim to know that myself either. I have no real idea. We're all figuring it out as we go, but even starting as younger artists, why are we not empowering ourselves with all these conversations around mental health and personal wellness and boundaries and asking for things and balancing your life and artivism, as we, or activism with artists involved, whatever the phrasing is, right? Like all of these things that we are doing or wanting to involve in our artistic life, but we don't have any actual resources or knowledge about. Like that's literally why EAC started too. So I feel like it's funny because I don't think I even knew the Actors Aesthetic origin story, even though I literally work for you. But I feel like now it's just like, oh, this is why. It just makes me feel like this is even more in alignment. And so it puts like a little smile on my face. How did you go from the blog aspect of it into the podcast aspect of it?
I wish I had a better story, except I think someone DM'd me and was like, hey, I would love to hear your blog posts. Like I would love to I would love to physically like walk to work or get on a subway and like actually listen to you as well. And, I loved that because people accept information in different ways. They learn in different ways. And so blog posts might be helpful to someone if they're quick to Google something, but if you wanted to consume that information audibly, great. So I basically just regurgitated a lot of my existing blogs and existing content into content on a podcast. That took me a hot minute to figure out how to do, because I had never done that before. And I don't even think I was ever on anyone's podcast before. I like didn't know like how. I had a microphone that was like probably 7 years old at the time, like just clueless. But eventually it turned into this like 50% interviews with other folks and then 50% just like solo episodes, because there was a point, I began this in 2018, at the end of 2018, the podcast. And there was a point where I realized like, around 2020, like there's really only so much information I can give from myself. I feel as though my listeners can learn so much more, even so much more from other folks, other walks of life. We all have a different path in this industry. And I think it's really important that people hear that. So that's how the podcast came about.
That's awesome. Let's swing back to, and I'm remembering these questions in my brain. Let's swing back now to the marketing aspect of things as your portfolio, as you presented this for your current job. How did that all go about? And what are some of the, I guess the initial question of like, are you taking what you know from say Actor Aesthetic and bringing that into the job, or is it more like the job is now informing, or is it a symbiotic situation?
It's both. Blah, blah, blah? It's both. It even informs what I do as a performer, like as an actor on social media too, because I learned a lot about with Actor Aesthetic. As you know, when you first start something like that, you you have such a small team, and in my case it was literally me, and like sometimes my sister telling me like ideas for a post or whatever. I don't know. She's my writer's room, as we call her.
We love it.
Yeah, but I think, you know, when you first start out, when you're first creating, when you first have an idea for something, you're your own content creator, you're your own writer, you're your own editor, you're your own publisher, you're your own marketer, you're everything. So when I figured out how to market Actor Aesthetic through social media, through emails, through different forms of digital media, I realized I literally know how to do this because I had to do it for myself, and I had to learn all of this myself. Like, it was.
And how did you learn that?
That was all like, besides the 2 classes that I took in college, the rest of it was just all like a shit ton of research on my own. I learned about like search engine optimization a little bit from my class, and then I ran with it, and I took, you know, I watched every single YouTube video I could possibly find on this kind of stuff and on marketing and advertising, and I just learned by doing, and I learned by error. I just learned by doing it myself. So when it came the time to, and not only that, but then when I started advertising my, not just like, you know, a blog post or a podcast, but like actually advertising my services,
right?
I realized, oh, I can actually, you know, I can write copy. Like, I know how to advertise myself now. I know how to market myself. And also, as actors, we need to know how to market ourselves. We need to know how to do that. Because like I said, you know, it's fine if you're a great singer, actor, or dancer, but it's only half the battle. Right. So when it came time to apply to jobs, I realized, wow, I have like a lot of parallel skills here. And I also have this business that I can showcase. And I, you know, basically showed, hey, I single-handedly created this entire website, this whole thing. I single-handedly, you know, marketed to thousands of people on my email list, or, you know, I have this X amount of downloads on my podcast, and I know how to create a podcast. I know how to grow a following on Instagram. I know how to do these things already. Let me do them for you. That's how that came to be. And I think that was, at the end of the day, it was something that I was always striving to do, because my senior year of college, I wanted to do so. I wanted to take a class or do something that was going to help me. Like, it was very intentional, that was going to help me pursue something alongside being an actor.
Yeah.
And at first I thought, when I was taking all these, like, the history of mass media, I thought, okay, maybe this could be like, maybe I could be a journalist. I don't know, but something along those lines, maybe not as extensive. At the end of the day, I had something that was literally tangible that I could showcase to employers, and it just so happened that it was the right fit for the Broadway Collective at the time, and now to this day, something I love to do, and I would love to continue to do years from now, because not only is it a passion of mine, but it just works a different side of my brain that I really enjoy.
Yeah. Well, for those artists who say have not perhaps used that part of their brain as much, I might be, you know, I feel like I'm newer to that part of my brain, and it's an exercise in stretching. You know, mental stretches are healthy, and we embrace them. But that, and also for those of us who perhaps like the word, even just the word marketing feels icky. What are some of your, like, these are the first steps I would recommend that you take so that you can at least start to feel like it's a little less ick, or to begin to feel empowered with even just embracing the fact that, as you so beautifully said, like, we are our own, all the things all the time for what it is that we do as artists?
I think it really comes down to sitting with who you are as a person in the world, which I think is very aligned with what y'all do, because I think your quote unquote brand, or whatever that means to you, and I would look at your brand in a way that a business would, because I think it's really easy to separate. Like, if you think of Twitter, or you think of Facebook, or you think of like these big companies, they all have a brand. They have a very unique presence. You see their logo, you know what they are. Why not translate that into yourself? Why not treat yourself as a business? Because in that way, if you start to treat your career as a business, you can almost step away from it and then be like, you know, who you are outside of the career. But what's important is that your brand is like what makes you you, whereas your type, whatever that means. I mean, I think that word is being changed constantly in the industry now, but your type, or whatever your type is different than your brand. So what I like to say is, like, there could be 5 different people called in for the role of Evan Hansen on Broadway. All of them are going to be relatively within the same type. And what I mean by that is just strictly like 5 people who could easily play Evan Hansen tomorrow because they just fit the essence of the role. But your brand is like what makes you different than the next person that walks in. So your brand is going to be really just who you are as a human in the world. What makes you different? What makes you unique? What makes you tick? Just what you're passionate about, maybe outside theater. Anything that just is a little bit different, embrace that. Marketing is how you showcase that brand. So what's really important is that you figure out what your brand is. And that comes down to who you are as a person in the world. That comes down to your essence, your being. And I like to tell actors when we're talking about this, to make it more authentic to them, is to jot down like the 3 different adjectives that they use to describe themselves. And this is not like the roles they play. I'm talking about like, how do people describe you? And if you have a hard time doing that, ask someone who knows you really well. Like, what are 3 words that you would use to describe me? And you don't have to think about it too quick. It's just the things that come up on the top of your head. That's good. That's your brand. Those words right there, that's your brand. How you market that is really up to you. And it can be very overwhelming because now with Instagram and with TikTok and with websites, there's so much at our fingertips. But I would start small. And I would look at the things that are most important to me. More important than anything is having a really sturdy website. So just putting the basics into there, because I can tell you, even in 2016, when I was interning with Michael Casera, we always went to someone's website first and foremost. We always looked someone up prior to bringing them in the room. And now, of course, that's even more important than it was back then. Website's so important. But then once you get past that and you get all the basics in a website, then you can get creative and you can go to social media, which is free. You can just be yourself and find things that work. And I think your next step really can just be going on social media as just a user, as just a viewer, and seeing what you like and what you find is entertaining to you, and go from there. So like find people you resonate with on social media. For me, like, my gosh, I love JJ Neiman. I think he's so freaking funny. But he's someone who has really just done something so special on social media, and he's just himself, and he is so creative. But find someone that you really look up to or find entertaining, and then see if you can find some inspiration there. But really, at the end of the day, it's just coming down to like the basics of marketing, basics of just showing who you are as a person in the world, besides just a performer, and then finding different ways to get yourself out there. It doesn't have to be sending out your headshot and resume to a casting office anymore. It can be as simple as posting a video of you singing.
Right. You know? It's so as you were talking, I was like clocking my own internal feelings around the word brand and type.
Oh yeah.
Of which I I have personally tried to bury so far down into the ground because in my hopes of like, you know, bringing down whatever part of, you know, capitalism and industry or society that isn't working. I'm like, these words are not helping me. And it's not helping us because we've compartmentalized people. So we haven't taken into account rather like how complex people are.
Yeah.
And it's been so interesting. It was so interesting hearing, because like the second I heard those words, I was like, you are shutting down, Jen. And then as I heard you express what you meant by each, it was like, oh, no, we're in essence, we are talking about the same thing. We're even when I do monologue sourcing, which is finding monologues, you know, specifically for people, which I do for actor aesthetic and I do for my own coaching clients too. Yeah. That I literally ask in that, like, what are 3 adjectives that you use to describe yourself? And what are 3 adjectives that people use to describe you? I literally do, because that so in and of itself is, it's again, another,
I know you hate it. I know.
Oh my God. But it's another, you know, like reason why I'm like, okay, no, we are speaking the same language. It's just that language is so complicated because it's so loaded. Yeah. And so for all of you who are listening in this moment, they were like, all of a sudden your skin was crawling and you're like, like truly, I was there with you. I see you, I hear you, I feel you energetically through this soundtrack that's happening right now. And you probably, if you watch this YouTube, you'll probably see like my body language. Probably, I imagine I was like cowering, probably unclear. I would imagine I was. But I think, you know, it's so interesting to me because I'm still like, even as you said all that and described the ways in which that works, I still have such an issue with those words. And I don't know if this is
there something? No, this is helpful because I've done a couple of, you know, I've been teaching this in different master classes and stuff like this for years. And I really have come to I'm very hyper aware of how people react to those words.
I would imagine so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially type, because I don't really. It's still something that I not that I struggle with it, but I still, like, I've always fought against the grain regardless. Correct. Like, I've always been like, well, you know, first of all, no one's ever just a soprano. No one's ever just an alto. Correct. No one's ever just an ingenue. Like, that's bullshit. That just doesn't, that never resonated with me since I was like 13. Yep. But it's I'm curious to know if there's like some other word or phrase maybe that resonates more with you, because you're the majority here, Jennifer. Like, most actors that I talk to are like, I don't want to talk about brand.
I mean, this is the other thing too, though, because I feel like there are other words that are thrown into the ether that now have been co-opted, and then now they're also taking on like icky feelings. Like the word authentic, for example, used to really mean authentic, and now people are like, "Who be your authentic self?" Truly, though, like, we do know what that means, and that actually is what we're getting at. But the word itself has become so icky around like authenticity that somehow it takes away from like what actually is genuine. Or like the word essence. Another one. Love that. I think like that is what we're talking about. Like, who are you in your core? What makes you speak? What makes you tick? What are your ideas? What are your values? What are your principles? Like, all of those things are your essence. And we're talking like that is what it is, and how you energetically exist in space. And yet that word too has somehow been co-opted in a way that I feel like takes away from what it is. I guess I don't necessarily have an answer for it as much as I just wanted to vocalize the fact that those words stress me out, and I don't know. And genuinely, and it's not because of you, it's the industry. And it's just, I don't know if they're serving us because of what we've associated with the particular word rather than the definition that perhaps you've given us, which is exactly what we're trying to get at anyway.
That's the thing. It all comes down to just what makes most sense to you. All of those things that you said, besides everything that you said that described essence, authenticity, brand, type, they all resonate. It just so happens for me, brand made the most sense and always has made the most sense because I tend to have more of like a less emotional and more like logical approach to things in life. And like I also like am constantly trying to figure out the business aspect of things. So that's also that is always what's driven me. So of course for me, brand, that's going to resonate with me because that's how I think of as, like I said, I just threw out randomly Facebook and Twitter, but like,
no, it is what they use.
Any big business out there, that's what they're going to use. That's what they have to use because that's what resonates.
It's literally branding.
It's literally quite literally branding. Yeah. And for actors, there is this disconnect because, first of all, you know, we're so used to just playing things that someone has told us to do, unless of course, you know, we're gifted and are writing things for ourselves. But if we're playing someone else's material, we're not really even thinking about ourselves or just thinking about how can I like do that to the best of my ability. We're very like selfless in that way. So I find that a lot of the students that I work with don't really ever think of like, oh, who am I though? Right. Like, you know, they're just thinking of like, well, I want to be the next this person, or I really love this person, so I want to be just like them. But like, no one's just like anyone.
Also, we already have that person. The whole point is that like we need you.
We just need you. So like, who are you, and what do you have to offer that's different than the last person that played the role, or the other person that you graduated college with? Like, who are you, and what do you have to offer? That is so. Think about being on the opposite side of things and sitting behind a table and just watching someone just know who they are. Correct. That is so interesting to watch. Even like I was just watching American Idol with my sister, which is so funny. I've been watching that show for years and I love it so much. And it's just something clicks when you see someone already know who they are on that show because it's just so inviting and it makes you just want to know more about them. Right. That's the same thing in anything, but especially in the entertainment industry, because when you know who you are and what you have to offer, it just feels like a sense of relief. Like the opposite side can relax and just trust that you're going to give it all you have.
Correct. I mean, it's like when you go and see a show and you you know that the person has it. Yeah. Like that they're not worried about them. Then you get to sit back and enjoy it. And that, you know, for many is the, you know, why they go see theater. I would argue there's other things to get from that, but you know, I think it's so fascinating to talk about it like this too, because it's so nuanced per individual, and yet if we were to do like a mass poll around artists and their feelings on, say, these words or what we're talking about, every single person is talking about the same thing.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Really are, you know? And so it's wild because it's like the language that we use though informs the way in which we can show up to even do this type of work of self-exploration.
Yeah.
And so even just that entry into it, I guess my invitation for anyone listening is like find that word that works for you to do what these things that we're talking about are about, right? Whether that is type, or whether that is branding, or whether that is essence, or whether that is, you know, authenticity, or whether that literally is just like asking yourself, who am I, or whatever, just like sitting and doing that is I love that as just an entry way into thinking about quote unquote marketing of oneself, or rather showing up for oneself in a way that is just like expressing who you are without having to, like cower just because the language seems to dictate something that isn't in alignment with you. Like what we're talking about is, right? And I just needed to like verbalize that for myself as I was clocking that the language was like not serving me.
Which is totally valid. Yeah.
Yeah. Often many of us are so quick to dismiss someone just because they might be, you know, communicating in a way that doesn't seem from the outside to be in alignment. And yet like truly like if we are coming from a place of like collaboration, which is what the arts are, then like we really are talking about the same thing all the time, which I love. So thank you for going down this like weird, like
I'm obsessed.
I mean, it had to happen because I was just sitting here like biting off my powdered fingernails. Like, is this what's happening? Like, no, I cannot. These need to last me a couple more weeks. Great. We're doubling back now again to this hat where I'm remembering. I'm so proud of myself. To the hat.
I'm really impressed.
Thank you so much. This is how my brain works. People are like, you have a podcast where you don't have questions. And I'm like, you need to trust that in this brain, there's like some wild activity that goes on. And it just happens to like, for the most part, relatively sometimes often decent do work. That wasn't English.
Yeah, that's okay though. I got it.
Thank you so much. This multi-hat wearing part of yourself, right? So if you are having your, I don't know if you call it your day job, or like you have your marketing hat on when you're working, you know, in that capacity, then you have your actor aesthetic entrepreneur hat, and then you have your artist hat of auditioning. How are you finding the balance for yourself, and how are you deciding to when those hats go on? Are you using all of yourself in all of them? Is it like a compartmentalized thing in your brain that you're like, now I'm doing this and I have to turn this part off? Like, how does this work for you?
It's so hard.
Yeah.
It is such a challenge. I think even like a couple months ago, I recorded an episode about this because I just got done doing a show in New York, and we did The Baker's Wife.
Congrats.
Thank you. It was so exciting. It was cool.
Yeah.
But it was my first show back after the pandemic, and things really started to pick back up, at least audition wise, like back in December or whatever. So I booked this job, and it was so awesome, but it was so exhausting. The time period of which I was doing the show and also working, because I never stopped anything. I just kept doing.
Wow.
It was very challenging. But I knew in that moment, not only was I doing the show where sometimes I'd have to rehearse during the day and then switch kind of my hours with the Broadway Collective and then work at night. But I was also swinging a show, so it was like 5 times the work. And then I was also moving at the same time. And I was, for what, God knows why, but like all of a sudden, I was like doing the show and I had like 6 auditions that I had to do like in 4 days. It was just, when it rains, it pours, and nothing is ever like, you can never foresee anything in this friggin' industry. Yeah. So, it was really hard. And even now that I'm not doing a show, I have to remind myself of how I can compartmentalize things and what is the priority. Because since I was so little, I have always wanted to be a performer. So I, first and foremost, to this day, I know that I want to continue acting until I can't anymore. And that's just something that I have known since the beginning. And it has fueled everything I do. But there are times when I'm working this job, or if I'm working on actor aesthetic, that I sort of lose that because my energy and my brain is just 24/7 something else. It's really hard to click back into that passion for what I love. So it was challenging to be present, for example, when I was doing my show, because I was focused on doing a good job, like at my other jobs. And sometimes you just have to let things ebb and flow. And you sort of have to like let yourself succumb to the priority at the moment. And know that you're not perfect and nothing can ever be perfect. So for me, of course, I was like, I have to do everything like as quickly as possible, and I have to be on time, and I have to take this call with someone, and I have to, market this program, and I have to sell this family on this product or whatever. And also, by the way, I should probably still continue my podcast. And it was just like, so it was just too much. So there was a point where I was like, okay, I literally like sat in my bed and I was like, why am I so stressed? And what is the most important thing right now? The show. Great. What else is important to me? Doing a good job at work. And then lastly, what else do I need to do? I need to get this self-tape done. And I just need to get it done and trust that the work that I'm doing is good enough. This is who I am today. I just kept reminding myself, like, this is who I am today. This is what I have to offer right now. Because that's life. And it almost was like, once I like settled into that, it was freeing, because I wanted to control every aspect of my life. But when you do that, you realize that it just leads to so much unhappiness. Like to be doing, it was so strange to me that I was doing a show and I was like unhappy for a moment. And when you just sit with the fact that that you I know it's really hard to communicate, but I'm still trying to like wrap my head around the experience. And what I will say is that it was just very, I learned so much about myself in just like a month and a half, and I'm still learning. And, you know, there's never a time where I haven't stopped learning about myself and learning about this career, no matter how old I'll get. I just know that will never stop.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing so openly in that way. But also I love even though it's not, you didn't present it as an exercise, but just simply just sitting down with yourself and saying like, what is my priority, or what is speaking to my heart today? What do I need to do today, whether it's literally for survival or literally for my emotional survival? Like both of those things are equally valid. And just really taking that calibration with oneself, you know, whether you're sitting down or whether it's like while you're commuting or whether, you know, you're listening to music or whatever you're doing, just taking that purposeful moment and recognizing that there are some things that must get done. And then there are those things that we want to get done. And that sometimes when things are really, when it rains, it pours, which is always the case. You have to prioritize in that way. And the guilt that potentially we can spiral into of like, well, I'm not getting all these things done, and recognizing that you are the person whose life we are living or you are living. And if you don't come back to that for yourself, then like whose life is this anyway? Right. And so I think I want to affirm the fact that it's really cool that you did that and that you knew to do that for you. And that in that moment that was so that you could have completely spiraled and it could have then affected all the aspects. No, truly, it's very real. Like you're a human being who is being overworked for all the good reasons, but it's a very real thing. And instead it was like, this is happening. Let's take a moment of pause, recognizing that this is a really overwhelming situation and I'm grateful. And all those things are equally valid at the same time. And also, what do I actually need to make sure that I can keep moving forward actually and stay afloat, in addition to hopefully thriving, right? That's a very difficult thing, to be able to take that moment of pause and to be like, this is, we're having a feeling. It's like, it's not going great. And I recognize it still might not go great, but I don't want it to plummet. I want to be able to like just keep it happening and keep my head above water. And it's hard to do that. It is really hard. So I just want to like affirm the fact that you did and you got through it, and you'll, you know, hopefully it'll continue growing up and learning upon itself as you have many more opportunities that all converge at the same time, because that is what we all somewhat dream about, even though when it happens, we're like, why did I wish this upon myself?
Because I mean, I'm my 2022 self was looking back at 2020 being like, this is literally what you wanted. You know,
Correct.
this was what you were just aching for.
Yeah.
And it's finally back. Here it is. It was so much.
Good luck.
Good luck. Have fun. Like you can figure it out if you want. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't really matter. But it's something that like my family, like I would remember getting so overwhelmed, and now obviously like looking back at these things, they seem so trivial, but like at the time, you know, when I was like applying to colleges and stuff, I was so freaking overwhelmed because there's so many programs that I wanted to audition for. I knew I had to apply to a bunch, but also I, you know, at the time was like, but I'm missing all of the school to go to these auditions. So I'm like falling behind in these classes that I really want to do well in. And I have to, you know, AP classes, whatever. And then also like, I'm missing all this rehearsal for my senior year show or all this stuff. Again, it's all trivial now, but at the time it was so important to me. And I remember my dad just sitting me down and being like, Maggie, you just like step away from the chaos that you have in your brain right now around these things. Just step away from it, look at it for what it is. And just write this one essay. All you have to do right now for the next 20 minutes is just write this essay.
One foot in front of the other. That's like literally all you can
literally
do.
that. Yeah. Like,
but I mean, it sounds so silly, but like we need that reminder sometimes. We really do, right? To be like, it's cool. We got it. You got it. It's great. Literally just take a breath and drink this water right here. Just do it. Cool. You did that. That's so great. You moved. Now you moved. There, a moment just happened. Like, what's the next one? Yeah. We can get so tunnel vision because we want to do it all and we want to do it well. And we care. And we care. And that's a beautiful, gorgeous thing. And also we're human beings and we need to take a breath. And maybe just do the essay and get that done with. Yeah.
Literally just do it's not that deep, Maggie. Just do the essay. It's fine.
And then he's like, do not name anything anesthesia ever again in your life.
He's so disappointed. So disappointed.
Listen, he's like, oh God, what a disaster. I think I doubled back to all my 3-ish.
You really did.
I think I did. And I'm really grateful to you for going on this wild, journey with me. Or just at least beginning to just touch upon these conversations. I feel like you have been such an incredible resource for so many people, which is literally why I initially reached out to you to record that episode of the podcast, and then why I was like, I think we can get here to coach together, and and you're like, yeah,
yes,
you
ma'am.
Do monologues, Jen.
Yes,
let's
ma'am.
work. And I feel like there's a reason that I think I've been drawn to the work that you do, and I think that's because you really have such a spearheading mentality, and you are not somebody who is waiting for permission to do things. And I'm really grateful that you've taken time to kind of talk through those journeys here, because for so many of our listeners, I know that there's all these ideas and perhaps fear, obstacles, all of those things popping up to prevent them from even taking that first step. And so talking in this way and just hearing that it really is just one step in front of the next, and recognizing that you're a human being who also is trying to learn balance as well, and we all are in the same boat, I think is such a peeling behind the curtain and a wonderful gift that you've given to our listeners, especially those of whom listen to Actor Aesthetic and know you probably through that and or the blog. And obviously if you have younger listeners from Broadway Collective as well too, I feel like there's going to be so many people listening to this being like, I didn't know this about Maggie. How cool. So thank you for sharing in this way. I'm really grateful to you.
Thank you. I'm so glad we had this conversation, especially, oh my God, about the brand. I'm never going to say that word ever again now, Jennifer. That's it. It is wiped from my vocabulary. I literally don't know what it means. I mean, we're gonna go on synonyms.com and
honestly, if you want to have me on the Actor Aesthetic podcast and be like, look, we're gonna just keep going back and forth on each other's podcasts. Be like, I was on Jen's and she talked about this, and now I'm bringing her on this, and we need to have a conversation about this. And we're not gonna solve anything.
There's so much more to be spoken about.
My God,
will we solve it? I don't know. But
I doubt very highly. I mean, I'm not a gambler, and money and numbers are not my thing, but I'm going to really wager that we will not.
No,
not that I don't believe in our skill set, but I do clearly, but not for solving an entire industrial way of compartmentalizing people in the way in which they show up into rooms. It's not going to be solved on this podcast by me.
You never know.
Sure, I guess never say never. Yeah, one can dream. I don't mean to dispel your verbiage that you use, but just offer the fact that for me in this moment, there was it's something that I continue to grapple with and perhaps push up against. And I think that's cool that we can have a dialogue about it.
I love it.
Otherwise, then we're just stuck in the status quo, and that's no fun. So, thank you. For anybody who is listening, if somebody wanted to reach out to you for any questions, or if they wanted to coach with you or anybody like myself on the Actor Aesthetic podcast coaching roster, or they wanted to work with the Broadway Collective, any of these things, what are the best way for people to respectfully reach out and contact you?
Great. So if you're looking for coaching, or if you want more information about actor lifestyle, all of those things, you can go to www.actoraesthetic.com. You can also shoot me an email at maggie@actoraesthetic.com. If you wanted to know more information about the Broadway Collective, you can go to bwaycollective.com, or I'm happy to chat more in the DM. So if you can find me at Actor Aesthetic or at Maggie Bera, which is my personal account where I'm acting a fool, please.
We love a fool.
Please stop by. I'll be there.
Give a gander, just a scroll and a like.
Just a little like. That's all we need. That's all we need at this point.
Gosh, what a time. Thank you so much for spending this
Thank you.
with me.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.